Our topic today is accountability in the context of schools, and we are going to address this topic with the help of three speakers: Jonas Höög from Sweden, Mika Risku from Finland, and Huub Friederichs from the Netherlands. Our moderator today will be Nora Revai from Hungary. The content of the webinar is based on policy tools and case studies developed in the project. As for policy reflection toolset, EPNoSL current and future work enhances the culturing of school leadership policy from a national perspective. The EPNoSL policy reflection tools are developed to guide reflections on the requirements for school leadership policy action planning in several national and regional contexts across the EU. The case studies will illustrate practices that stand out in terms of developing or implementing school leadership policy and enhancing school leadership. And now I would like to introduce the first speakers, Jonas Höög and Mika Risku. Jonas Höög is going to present the accountability policy toolset, and then Mika Risku is going to comment on this after Jonas has finished his presentation. And now I would like to introduce firstly Jonas Höög, who is a professor of sociology at the Center for Principal Development at Umeå University, Sweden. His research is focused on leadership and organization. He participates in several EU projects. He is responsible for the master program in educational leadership at Umeå University. Mika Risku is the director of the Institute of Educational Leadership at the University of Jyväskylä, Finland. His main interests lie in social justice, pedagogical and distributed leadership. He participates in several national and international education policy committees. At the moment, he is a member in the National Board of Education work group reforming the job description, qualifications, and education of principals. Mika Risku teaches in an EAL degree and continuing education programs and has a substantial experience as a secondary school principal and teacher. And now I would like to give the floor first to Jonas, and after he finished his presentation, we will switch directly to Mika, who can comment on the presentation. So, Jonas, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adele. I hope I'm heard. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well, Jonas. Yes.
Very good. I won't shout too loud. This is about accountability tools, and there are 4 of those that I want to present. But first, what is accountability? There's a lot of definitions about the concept, but I chose this one because it's focusing on disclosing the results in a transparent manner. But the whole definition, you can see the obligation of an individual or organization to, and you know that school is an organization, don't you? To account for its activities, accept responsibility for them, and to disclose the results in a transparent manner. It also includes the responsibility for money or other entrusted property. We shan't talk about money this time, but some other aspects of accountability. There are 4 accountabilities that I will pick up and talk about. The first is to assess both academic objectives and social and civic objectives when you assess a school. And the second is focus both on high marks and a pass in all subjects for all students. Third one, the result related to the intake of pupils and their socio-economic background. And the fourth one, inflated marks. Mark levels in relation to national tests or other sources to help control whether the marks are inflated or not. So we start with the first one, accountability in relation to academic and social and civic objectives. This information I take from a project that we had in Umeå, We studied 24 schools, and the study was called Structure, Culture and Leadership, Prerequisites for Successful Schools. And we thought that what should we call a successful school? Is it only the marks they get, the students get, or is it something else? And we thought about that, and we said that if you read the curricula and other steering documents, you find out that, oh, that's also a social issue. There's a social development that you need to bring to the students. So there are both social and civic objectives. The social ones are keywords for the work with social objectives in Swedish schools are individual freedom, integrity, equality, pupils' creative ability, very important, and their critical awareness. And the civic ones are building a culture for citizenship, beneficial not only for politicians and a political system, but also for the society as a whole. And I don't know if you heard what happened in Gothenburg yesterday. 2 guys went into a bar and shot everyone they could shoot. What kind of culture of citizenship did they have at school? We built this one on the Swedish Bruk system, assessment, results, evaluation, and quality. It's about, and it's a help from the national agency for the schools to try to evaluate these social and civic objectives. It's about norms, values, and personal development, 8 dimensions. I don't read them here. You can test them later. We did this by using teachers' questions that they should use when assessing their schools and transform this to questions to pupils in a questionnaire. And we summed up the questionnaire, and we took that as a way to assess what schools do when it comes to social and civic objectives. And then we made a 4-fold table where academic objectives and social and civic objectives were 2 important assessment accountabilities. And then you can see that the strong ones in both academic and social and civic objectives were the good schools. And when we read all the interviews with principals and teachers, we found that, okay, these schools are really led in a very good way, and the red ones not, and the 2 others, well, in one way they are good, but in the other they not. So that's important not to forget the social and civic objectives. The second one is accountability in relation to academic marks and pass. And if you see this figure, you can see a lot of schools. It's 1,410 schools, and you can see that some schools are low on marks, and here on pass, and another school is on the same place when it comes to pass and higher on marks. So you have different schools when it comes to be proficient in one or both of these accountabilities. And this is an easier figure, perhaps. I have picked 2 schools here. Here is one with marks. You have marks in Sweden from 0 to 320, and you have pass, of course, from 0 to 100% of the pupils. This is a school with marks on the level of 202, and this is a school also on the same place. If you page 101.9 as 202, but they differ in how many students pass. Here it's 54%, and here it's 97%. So you can say about these 2 schools that this school and this school, well, they do about equal when it comes to the marks. But this school is very keen to see to it that all students get a pass when they leave school. So what should this school do? Well, it's good in pass, but not too perhaps proficient in marks, so they should move in this direction. And this school is well, it's quite good on marks, but in pass they bad. So they should move in this direction. Most of the schools, of course, is in this group of schools. They try to do both marks and pass, and that's what we have to learn schools. The third one is accountability in relation to pupils' socio and economic background. And I have a figure here that says a lot, even if it's a bit messy. These are years from 98 to 2011. And these are marks, and you have from 0 to 320. And the green lines represent schools where the parents have a high education. The orange is parents in the middle, and the red is the lowest. And as you can see, this keeps on. The results from the schools are very strongly connected to the parents' educational background. And parents' educational background, of course, is connected to the social background on the whole for these families. So we have to do something about this. And the first thing you can do is try to measure this. And in Sweden, we have a system where we say that, okay, you have this social background when you study your students, their families. And with this background, compared to the mean results in Sweden, you should deliver more than you do, because with this green parents you could do something better. And
it seems that Jonas has some problems with his audio, and until we solve this problem, maybe I would like to ask Mika if he would like to comment a little bit on what Jonas has presented so far, if you are ready.
Yes, I can do that. Gladly do that. First of all, I would like to thank Jonas for his work. He's been carrying the Nordic group here with his analysis and presentation, and done it in a very extraordinary manner as well. Concerning accountability, in an earlier webinar, I said that we Finns have major problems with a concept. Jonas has chosen a definition here which includes responsibility and transparency. And that's something that also Finns can live with. Then what Jonas attempts to emphasize in his presentation and in the report is a broader view on accountability, which is, to put it simply, not focusing on a poor student or poor teacher who is trying to do his or her best, but takes into consideration the system. In Finland, too, we would like to emphasize social objectives in addition to the academic ones, and gladly join, if I understood right, Jonas' critics to focusing on what is easy to measure, and that's on the academic objectives, although the social ones to us too seem to be much more important. Jonas' second point was on school mark levels and the percentage of students that pass their exams. One could say that Finland is cheating here concerning the passage rate, because our system allows to individualize the goals for students and create individual goals. In the school reports, we have an asterisk in front of the mark to indicate this. But we can pass students with these individual goals, although the students would not be able to meet with the national criteria as such. However, I don't really find that as cheating because, for example, PISA results tell us that Finland more or less lacks the two lowest percentiles in academic achievements. And maybe it's because we can work with self-confidence of students in this cheating way. At least, although you're not a student of the highest marks, you can have your own individual goal and really, in that scale, be excellent. And in the national setting, then have the asterisk there to show that it was not really exactly the same as with everybody else. Concerning taking into consideration the socioeconomic background, again, we see it exactly in the same way as Jonas has written it in the report, where the Finnish education system has never succeeded, or we can say it has failed, to remove the effect of parents' socioeconomic background. We've more or less been able to remove it concerning the schools, but not concerning individual students. So it's something that one really has to take into consideration exactly in the same way as Jonas has done. Concerning mark optimization, we recognize the problem, and we definitely have the same thing in our schools as well. Then again, when we compare the marks that schools give to the ones in national tests, one have to recognize that national tests or their scope is much more confined, restricted compared to that of the school marks. And in fact, I would trust more the school marks than the national tests when we think about the human being from the first perspective Jonas had for us here, that is, to include social objectives in addition to the academic ones. As I said, I very much like what Jonas has offered us here, and would hope that the scopes, the approaches Jonas has, would have an effect broadly, more broadly in the European context. And this concludes my comments on to Jonas' work. Adele, you can continue.
Thank you very much, Mika. And now I would like to ask Jonas if he could reconnect his audio and if he can continue the presentation. Jonas, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I have a minute, I'll just talk about this last accountability. And Mika has approached this in a very good way. And you all know what it's about. And these are data from the Swedish National Agency. And we have a lot of schools giving higher marks than the test results on the national tests, and just a few schools giving lower marks. So we have a problem here, because when these students that think they have really been proficient in their school job, and they see the PISA results that drops all the time, they wonder what is happening. So this is the fourth one of the accountabilities I think we have to be more keen to address and to work with. And here I have summarized it, and you can read that later. I won't read it up now, but there has to be developed strategies to work with this. So that's my last word. Thank you.
So thank you, Jonas, for this really thoughtful presentation, and also thank you for your effort to trying to connect the audio again and again, and really thank you that you didn't give up. And I also would like to thank you to Mika that he could come in and comment on the presentation of Jonas. So it is really great that at the end we could hear the final words of Jonas. So now we would like to continue with the second presentation, and I would like to introduce Huub Friederichs. He is expert in management and organizational development in education, both in the Netherlands and internationally. He works for a number of educational organizations and for the Netherlands School for Educational Management, the NSO. In the capacity of project coordinator for NSO's international activities, he is working on large-scale projects for developing and implementing programs of comprehensive educational leadership training, also in East and Southeast Europe. And now I would like to hand over to Huub, who will present the Dutch case study on the approach to decrease and prevent early school leaving in the Netherlands. So Huub, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Adele, and I would like to say hello to all my friends over in Europe. I see some familiar names and some new names. That's very nice. And Jonas, I would like to say to you, I think, yeah, of course I feel sorry for you. And I got a little bit of the impression that how it is when you are deaf. When I am deaf, you know, we couldn't hear anything at a certain moment. For the next 15 minutes, I have 16 slides, so it means that I will just address some global notions about the Dutch approach on early school leaving, and actually it's preventing early school leaving, and accountability. And my presentation will end with some links for further information, also on the Crocus project, which is also about preventing early school leaving in a couple of countries in Southeast Europe. My main message, actually I've got two messages. First is preventing early school leaving is a comprehensive effort. It's a hard effort, it takes a long time, and you need a lot of endurance. And on accountability, I would like to say that in addition to Jonas's presentation, the money for us is also very important. I don't know if you read all European newspapers, but at the moment there are a couple of big scandals in the Netherlands about, because it's such a decentralized system, there's a lump sum financing, and there are also school leaders who think they can take out more money than they are ought to do. So that's the accountability is not only academic results and social results and also about social economical backgrounds, but also money. Money is involved, it's tax money for from everybody. And another thing is that maybe you've said it, but I would like to underline it a little bit more, that also accountability, and we can really live with your explanation on responsibility and transparency, but it's also accountability means that you are accountable for society, to the society, so that everybody can see in a way that you are using the money for education in the right way. These are the things that I would like to, I did my introduction, and I will go a little bit into the early school living in the Netherlands, and then say some words about accountability, and then the last slide is of course about the references. Just to have a little bit of a background and sketching the landscape in our educational system. On the left-hand side, you see the ages from 0 to 18, and 18 is the age that people have to go to school. And then the lower part, the red part, is of course basic education, and then it divides in the left side to pre-university education and general secondary education, and in the blue one, VMBO, it says, it means vocational education, and you can go on a middle level and on a professional level. In the green HBO, it says higher vocational education, and then of course scientific university education. Just the focus for early school leaving is in the middle part, so from 12 till 18, both in pre-university education, general education, and in the vocational education. There is the focus. Here you can see the ideas about Europe. They say, okay, in 2020 we have 10% early school leavers, which is still a high rate, I think. And on this axis there is all the countries, and here are the percentages. And of course, you can see that Europe has, Europe is, where is Europe? Here. It's a little bit more than 10%. And the Netherlands at the moment is here. And for instance, Croatia and Slovenia are rather doing well, and Czechoslovakia and Poland, and also Latvia. Although they don't have, here is the national target, and here, and I thought it's possible actually to show it, isn't it? How can I do it? Because I'm using my cursor at the moment, but I'm not so sure if you can see that. No, you can't. There was a way to. Well, okay, leave it. But you can study it, and the source is the Eurostat Labor Force Survey. There's a lot to do still. There is a lot to do. Also about the definition of early school leaving, we say early school leavers are the ones below the age of 18 that don't have a diploma from one of the curriculums. Now, the slide here, it's that I would like to tell a little bit more about it, because it should be well understood that the effort of decreasing early school leaving is not easy, because it's a number of reasons. It's a comprehensive, integrated approach that requires collaboration of all stakeholders, not only the government and the local authorities, but of course school boards, school management, teachers, students, parents, social workers, etc. And the nice thing is at the moment that after working for almost 10, 12 years on this project, it seems rather good results. So it is, although a lot of teachers didn't believe in it and so on and so forth, after 2 or 3 years, they finally give their consent and say, okay, this is what's going to work. So you need a long-lasting endurance. Particular and political pressure is involved. There is sanctions. For instance, if the school leader doesn't meet the targets, then he will be fired, or they're looking for some other people who can do the job. In the case study that Nora is compiling, this case study book from the EPNoSL project, there is a lot more to say, and I don't think I have the time now to go into all little details. But for school leaders, it means that the approach is very, very decentralized. It means that you need to identify the local needs, to find localized solution. There is no one way. We like to distinguish, let's say, the personalists, the ones who say, okay, early school leaving is because of the personality or the talent of the student, or the culturalists and structuralists. They say, well, it's about the context, the chance people or students will survive in the school system and so on and so forth. That's the way how they drop out, because they don't like the system. What is really needed to understand is that the school leader needs to take ideas or perspectives from both sides, so that there is no one really one way to solve the problem. Individualized approaches and perspectives to deal with the thing, with the dropouts. If I go to slide 6, so a little bit more in detail for the approach. What does it mean? We have let's say a regional approach, and this is only the Netherlands. And here you can see that in the west and the big cities, it's the highest rate, and that has to do probably with the multicultural society here. It's very, very difficult, as PISA results also show, that classes with a lot of children with cultural background in it have difficulties to achieve the standards and the results. Sorry, my throat. This is not Parinka. As I said, that the qualification duty is that all students who leave school must have basic qualification, and that's a diploma from secondary or vocational education. So I don't think people move to the east of the Netherlands for getting better education. What did we do in the last couple of years? Everybody has this qualification obligation. So it's by law that says if you leave school, you need to have your diploma. Then everybody got, and everybody is, I'm talking about the students, got a personal education number, which makes it easy to have this digital absence portal. So all people who don't participate in the lesson, they will report it in this absence portal, so that over time you can see how many hours you were absent or you had truancy or things like that. What they also did at the same time was building a career and orientation guidance. It means that teachers were, and also people from outside non-teaching staff, were trained in career orientation and guide the student to the profession. Another thing, and that this is more difficult, that's the transfer to follow-up education program. If you say, okay, this is going to be a dropout because he or she choose the wrong education or the wrong program or the wrong curriculum, let's try to find a school where he or she will be more challenged for the talents and where he can or she can be more developed. So that's it's not easy because you need already to have experts on all kinds of curricula, but it works. It works. And then the care structure at school, and here also social workers involved, psychological assistants, etc. It shows how integrated the approach is. What is taught in the Netherlands for teachers? There is some indicators if people are, let's say, in risk or in danger to become a dropout. If they arrive at school late, if there is being ill a lot of times, lagging behind in results. And one of the things is actually if students lag behind in the language and mathematics, then it's a rather precise indicator if students are at risk. Well, Jonas talked about also the background, the social economical background, and the home situation. The home situation can also be parents having a divorce, things like that, which put a lot of stress on the student. If, and this is one of the big measures, if there is a 12-hour absence, immediately there goes a letter to the mentor and the coordinator. The mentor and the coordinator takes action to write a letter to the student and to the parents or caretakers for the, and this is very important, you know, to be very, very early and not having it last for a long, long time, not being at school. Now I will talk, oh sorry, this is far too fast. I will talk about accountability. I can talk 3 days about how the system works and what it means and how the project is approached, but the links will tell you more. Also, they are in English. Some are in Dutch, but they will show you more and more details about the project, how it's steered, how people are involved, who are the people that are involved, and what kind of expertise they bring in. Well, this is probably a very well-known picture. The school in the middle, there is government, there is training and support agencies for developing the school, there is research and development, and there is the National Testing Center for the results, and the Inspectorate of Education. But this is just to show how people are involved. And in the school, we consider also parents, students, the local learning community, etc., etc. And this is about accountability, the points of departure. We think school boards are responsible, and what I said before, if they don't perform, if they don't reach the target, there will be sanctions, budget cuts, well, maybe also replacement. There will be an annual analysis. In the system, we use signals of teachers, of the care system, the students. There is focus on potential failing schools with a high dropout rate, and the project works with confidence and contracts and agreements with the school board together, and also with, let's say, schools together, not only one school at a time, but schools together, regionalized approach. And what we really should understand is that it's all very individual for each and every student. But then what happens is that all school results in relation to dropout, they will be published on the internet, and this is how it gets transparent and everybody knows, and then there's a lot of talk in the media about it. So parents can go on the internet and they can say, okay, this is unfortunately only in Dutch. We can look for a school, and this is the green part. We can look for a school. We can choose the choice for what kind of education. We can find the school. We can say, okay, this is in this city, and then you can start the search. And all the data of the school in relation to what the inspectorate says is published. So you can really find all the schools and their results. And there's another one when it comes down to dropout. Also here, the school's results are published on the internet by the Ministry of Education. There is a Dropout Explorer, and this is partly in English. And I said it for Amsterdam region. And this is the Amsterdam region, and here you can see how they perform in the city center and more in the little places around Amsterdam. Okay, if you want to read more, if you want to have more information, I think you can download, or this is going to be on the EPNoSL website, and you can click on the approach to early school living, attacking early school living, the Dropout Explorer. This is the first one, the approach to early school living, is a general description of how it worked in the Netherlands over the years. Attacking early school living is the Dropout Explorer, and the school results published on the internet by the Education Inspectorate. And of course, what I would like to draw your attention to is the Crocus project, which tries also, and they call it cross-sectoral cooperation, focused solutions for preventing early school leaving. It's a very nice project that is conducted, well, actually directed by the Tempus office in Budapest, and I have the honor to be a participant in it. What I would like to refer actually also to this one, because Jonas was also talking about the academic results, and what I like very much is this 6 frameworks for the 21st century skills. It is more or less related to early school living. So if we can see in schools and the social and civic competences that people need, and the knowledge and skills, then there is a couple of frameworks where you can find more and more information about it and what it can be and how you can deal with it. I hope that I was in my time, and this was when I was introduced by my wife to my now father-in-law, that I was a dropout, but from a very prestigious university. And here I have also made a typo, I see. Question and answers. Maybe the floor is now to Nora, because she's going to help us out. And I would like to thank you very much for attending this seminar and your attention. Okay, I'll give back to wherever in Europe you are, Adele or Nora or Pavlos.
Yes, thanks, Huub, it's me.
Okay, Adele.
I would like to thank you, Huub. It was a really, really inspiring presentation. And as I noted, there are a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm quite sure that the presentation was inspiring also for the participants. And I'm glad to introduce my colleague, Nora Revai, who is going to moderate the discussion. And she's my colleague at the Knowledge Center of the Tempus Public Foundation. And Nora has been responsible for leading knowledge management activities in the European Policy Network on School Leadership since 2011. Before joining TPF, Nora had been a secondary school teacher of English and mathematics. So I would like to hand over to Nora, and I'm quite sure that you collected some interesting questions already.
Thank you very much, Adele, for the introduction, and most of all, thank you very much for all the speakers for the wonderful and very inspiring presentation. And as Adele said, there are already a lot of questions, so I won't hesitate. I will just quickly start. Some of the questions relate specifically to the Dutch ESL prevention system, but first I would like to go back and talk a little bit more broadly about accountability, and going back to Jonas's and Mika's presentation first. The first thing, it was very interesting for me to see a broader view on accountability, which also takes into consideration the social objectives and not only academic results. And what I would like to ask you first is, how do you measure social objectives? On what basis can you decide whether a school performs well on this respective? Jonas, you mentioned interviews. Are there anything else? Also, you said in your definition on accountability that transparency is key. How do you make transparent that schools perform well on social objectives? So Jonas and Mika.
Well, perhaps I should start. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Good. What we did was that we used a questionnaire formed for teachers, as I said, and this questionnaire is built on the curriculum and the school law. So all the questions were related to what is school supposed to deliver when it comes to norms, values, and personal development. And our thought was that, well, these are questions that the teachers should work with, and perhaps we could reorganize the questions, take away some of them, and to form them so that they would be possible for pupils and students to answer. And we did a pilot, and we worked with that a while. and it seemed possible, and then we made a questionnaire with 53 questions, went out to the students in 9th grade in all these 24 schools, and then we compiled this to a value, a mean value for the answers the student delivered, whether they think that the social objectives are met or not. And it's about all the stuff I talked about earlier, about democracy, about creativity, about all the stuff that schools should deliver. And then we used that data, and you have to transform data so you can compare marks with the social objectives measure. And that's what we did, and we compared these 24 schools, whether they're better or worse than the mean. And then we had them in these 4 groups. But there's no measure used generally in Sweden, not in Finland, not in Denmark, and not in Norway either. But we are developing the system, and people get in contact with us to help them use our basic work. And we have done this in Stockholm area with a lot of schools where they used the measurement of social objectives, civic objectives, in the same way as we did. And now another municipality in Stockholm wants us to work with that. And we have a large project that Mika also knows about that's called the ISSPP, International Successful School Principal Projects. It's a large project with a lot of countries in it. And these projects are now going into studying cruising schools, where the schools live up to expectations. You know, I talked about the relation to background, character of schools, and whether the schools live up to what they can do with the pupils they have. And in this project, the student questionnaire are going to be used. So we are testing it, and the idea in the long run is to build a sort of system where you can assess this mission for schools and use it in general.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it's a very interesting and innovative way of measuring schools' effectiveness. And Mika, I would like to ask you the same question, but maybe completed a little bit. So firstly, how is it made transparent in Finland, if at all? And a related question coming from Esther Segedi is, how do you think parents' expectations relate to this aspect? So would they choose schools who are better at academic results, or would it be as important for them? Would social objectives or social results be as important for them as academic results? Do you know anything about that?
First of all, I'm not aware that we would have, say, hard research on these matters that much. But we are interested in these issues a lot, and concerning, for example, the questionnaire that Jonas has been preparing, the plan was to have it in Finland too, but it would need the resources that we did not get for that study. And then another issue is that Finland is so much led with evidence nowadays that we have major problems getting people in schools to reply. We are doing too much of it, in fact. But then answering your question, how people choose the schools, we know about the capital region that parents are more and more selecting the schools to their children on the basis of the reputation of the school. But then what the reputation is built on is not merely on academic achievements in the school. It can be that the school has a reputation of taking very good care of its pupils, for example, socially, or the school having a good atmosphere. And then those factors may be more important to the pupils and to the parents in selecting the school. Maybe one of the reasons for that is that we still have the situation in Finland where you, concerning academic outcomes, can choose whatever school and you know you will be getting good education. Then what we want to focus on and emphasize is how the system works. More and more, I think, our focus is there. There are ways of having positive discrimination. For example, to have more resources there where we have a lot of parents who are unemployed, who don't have such a high level of education. In fact, we will have a major change in our state subsidy system 2017, and a lot of money will be given to those municipalities which do have a lot of parents without a good, proper education level, because evidence has shown that it reflects immediately on how their children are doing as well. So there are ways of doing it. I do think that people and policymakers know where we lie, although we do not have that hard evaluation systems that many countries have. I would even claim that we often seem to know much better how the situation is because we are not blinded by that kind of research which can not meet the reality anyhow.
Yeah, and which only shows one part of the reality, maybe.
Exactly. That's why I so much like Jonas' presentation. He took into the front picture exactly those aspects that we would like to take into the front from Finland as well.
Thank you very much. One more question concerning social and civic objectives coming from Maria Donkova. She asks you, so Jonas and Mika, are social and civic objectives nationally defined, so the same for all schools in Finland or Sweden or other Nordic countries? And do you have any data on how much of the school time is invested in achieving these objectives compared to academic ones, if it can be measured at all? So, Jonas, maybe could you answer shortly?
Yeah, there are definitions on how you should understand social and civic objectives, but they are spread out in the school law, in the curriculum, and on other places. And I think since we try to do that with our project, I think they have worsened the system. It's more diffuse today what social and civic objectives are, norms, values, and personal development for students. So I'm wondering if I shouldn't go into a debate about why is that system taken away partly. Because as we understand the kids' situation today, we need to put more emphasis on social and civic objectives. So there are definitions, but you have to collect them yourselves in the steering systems. I don't know why the national agency and school ministers, perhaps I know the former government wasn't too keen to go into that. They were more interested in marks, grades, and stuff like that. And I think this new government perhaps will pick up this issue because we have a lot of things about this in Sweden, since we also have a lot of refugees that have to be helped into the Swedish cultural system. Another thing about the question Nora posed, what do parents choose? Well, as a matter of fact, I did analysis of schools that focus on marks and schools that focus on pass. And the schools that focus on pass, they are situated in the countryside, municipalities with more factories, stuff like that. Those parents, they want to have a school where the kids can go through the school with a final exam. That's the most important thing. The schools that are focusing more on marks, they are situated in educational centers with universities, stuff like that. And these parents, they want schools that are focused on marks so that the students can go into university. So we have a different type of parenthood when it comes to that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jonas. I would also like to ask some questions to Huub. In fact, there has been quite a few asked by the participants. Some of them refer to the follow-up program you were talking about, Huub. Are they still available for students over 16, or are there other programs for them? And the other question related to the follow-up program in the Netherlands was, who owns these programs, the state, the community, or someone else?
Yeah, I saw the question from Maria. There is, if I made myself clear, this follow-up program means that if I fail, if I am a dropout from a kind of school, then together with my parents, together with the care system, I will try to find, as long as I need to follow education, since I'm not 18. Then we will try to find a follow-up. But there is, in the system, actually, there is time to find out. So there is special classes within the schools itself. So there's no special schools, like Dangola asked. So there is no special, within the school itself, there is classes, let's say, and we call them break classes, to take a break from your current curriculum, and then you sit together with other people who don't want to follow the program, or they need to go to school. Actually, there's an obligation to be in school, since you can't be absent, or you can't be ill. Well, you can be ill, of course, but not. It is true, actually, that in Amsterdam, the inspection go with buses to the address of the student or the pupil to get him from home, yes, and then he has to go to school. So this is what happens, and then try to find a follow-up program that's from point of view from the student. Okay, we're going to the next curriculum when we analyze your talents a little bit better, when you advance your preferences, your learning preferences, your skills, etc., etc., and then we find the vocation or the profession you can work on. So that I hope that I made myself clear.
Thank you very much. I think so. At least it was clear to me. I would like to ask a question to all of you, but maybe start with Huub, and it concerns the consequences of accountability system. So Huub, you mentioned already that in the Netherlands there are clear sanctions. So if a school doesn't perform well, for example, on early school leaving, then the school leader can be fired, or other things can happen. Could you tell me what you think the appropriate consequences are? Because it can also be, of course, intervention, development, these kinds of things. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the recent examples for this is, and that's high in the media, that the financial state of the school is very poor, or they go bankrupt even. What happens then? So the consequences are that students need to go to school. So other schools take over, and if you don't manage your school in the proper way, actually you give a big burden on society or on your colleague schools in the area. So that's one of the consequences why we need to have accountability and punishment. And of course, these people who took too much money from the lump sum budget, or that took risks by building two beautiful schools. You know, they took risks in all kinds of swaps and interest rates, and the banking system, of course, wanted to buy them, and etc. etc. And this is, yeah, well, they can, these people who took those risks, they can forget about a further career in the educational system. That's obvious. The consequences for the students are, and that's actually, of course, the basic goal. Well, this is a very nice picture. The real thing is, of course, that we should improve the quality of education, and the more failures come out, or the more people look at all the data or all the processes that's going on and give their ideas about it or how to improve it, the better it gets. Well, that's an assumption, of course, but the more people have their thoughts about it, and the power to think and to talk and to have consulting them, then the idea is that, and you know, the Netherlands, they always talk and don't decide anything, but that's not the case. That's not the case, really. You know, we talk, and then finally the solution falls in, and then there is a lot of support for the decision, and then everybody is committed to it. That's participative management, of course, and actually also maybe a little bit of distributed leadership. Everybody is responsible for the whole thing.
Yeah, so actually, in order for the solution to fall, you need to talk. It's an important element of that. Maybe, Mika, very quickly, could you also tell us a little bit about what the consequence mechanisms are in Finland? So what happens if you see somehow that a school is not doing well in any respect?
I've asked that question superintendents a lot, in fact, and we've asked that, in fact, in our national study to principals too, and I think everybody agrees that if things are not going right, we have to do something, and quickly. But what we try to avoid is punishment. The more I see, the more I think that in our society we have a very positive image for the human being. If something goes wrong, it's not people pointing with a finger at the one who fails, but you have a lot of people around you trying to think what they have or what the system has done wrong, so that that person had to fail. And we try to then find out the solutions to the situation from the system by developing the system.
Are there specific interventions are there specific interventions from the part of superintendents, for example? Like, do they go to schools? Do schools or school leaders get any support?
Yeah, that's what people say. All say the same, in fact. Teachers and principals, if things go wrong, they want to get support.
Can I ask a question?
The previous major task. Yeah, Huub.
But it's the people who build the system, isn't it? It's the people who I think at the moment you are saying that if the system fails, you can't make people responsible, or this is too extreme? What I'm thinking.
Well, no, you are very sharp there, and that's exactly what I'm saying. And I completely agree with you that people make the system. But to put it in another way, what is wrong with the structures? What is wrong with the processes that good human being in the system is not able to help the other one so that that person would succeed? That's what I think is really strongly in our mindset. And it also affects in what kind of evaluation we want to have. Sometimes I feel that we are afraid of having the hard evaluation, which might show that things are not well, because we would not start blaming at the people, but we would start blaming at the system, meaning that we would need to have more resources or support. And it can be that policymakers don't want to get that evidence, because it would put them in a difficult situation. They do so that the system supports the people better. I completely agree with you.
Okay.
Take away the problem in our mind.
But of course, I was talking also about abusing the system and abusing the rules, and then of course people should be punished, I think.
We ask that question again and again, whether people are abusing the system, or and the answer from everybody more or less always is yes, it happens too, but it's a marginal group.
That's true. Yeah.
Punish everybody else because some are not doing the right thing.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mika.
Thank you, Mika. Maybe I would like to give the last word then to Jonas. Adele told me that I still have, let's say, 3 or 4 minutes. And I was wondering, you both mentioned, Jonas and Mika, the national or international test results, and the marks and how they relate to each other. And Jonas, you saw it as a problem that marks were higher. Because teachers see themselves doing a good job, but then PISA or other national tests shows that it's not the same, or it's not the case. While Mika said, interestingly, that maybe marks should be better trusted because they may include, for example, the social objectives. They may include the students' individual objectives. So Jonas, how do you see that? How would you resolve this?
Yeah, that's a good point, because you should, of course, try to trust your teachers, but there's been a debate in Sweden about that, and it's not comparing the PISA in the first round, but to compare with the national tests, and there has been problems with, for instance, tests in mathematics, which is the subject where you have the greatest difference between the results in the national tests, and the national tests are done at school, and it's compiled by the school teachers, so it's nothing from the outside. But when it comes to mathematics, why the difference is so big there is that teachers and schools don't follow the curriculum. In the curriculum, it is said that students should learn how to understand mathematics, not just count. What is 10 plus 10? And the schools haven't picked up that because they don't read the curriculum good enough. The goals for mathematics. This has been working with in Sweden for 3 or 4 years now, when that was seen in the results. And one of the problems is the books that the school gets, they use, the school books, because they only focus on that the students should count and learn plus and minus and all these things. This is necessary, but in the curriculum, it's also said that they should understand the concept of in mathematics and what it is. And the questions in the national test try to see whether the students has learned that, and they haven't. So that's why the marks is high, because the teachers go through the school books, mathematics books, but the curriculum says something else.
I see. I'm afraid we don't have more time, even though I'm sure a lot of other interesting questions could be asked. What I suggest is that we will post the webinar recording on our website. Adele, please confirm me. And then we can continue chatting there. So we can continue asking and answering questions. So I would like to thank all the speakers very, very much for the discussion and for the presentations. And I'll give the floor back to Adele for a final word.
Well, thank you, Nora. Yes, the webinar recording is going to be posted on the EPNoSL web portal. I would like to thank you for our speakers for these really inspiring and thoughtful presentations. And I would like to thank you also to Nora to organize the discussion in this interesting way. And I completely agree with the suggestion of Nora that, of course, we can post questions to the video recording, but there is something else you can do. EPNoSL has developed a national online forum, which you can use in your own national languages. I just have posted the link of the forum, so you can maybe continue discussions in your national language at this portal, which is free and which is accessible for everyone interested. So thank you very much for participating at our 5th webinar, which was the last event in our series of webinars. And of course, we will send you an evaluation questionnaire about the webinar after the session. So please fill in this questionnaire, and it is really important for us that you give us a feedback.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, and see you next time.
Yes, please.
Who managed this?
Hi.
Hello, Inta.
Jo es teiktu, lai pasaka man. Es saku, es neesmu tādu ziņu saņēmis. Par to jūs paldies saviem kolēģiem varat teikt.
Nu, bet atvainot, viņš var izsūtīt visiem.
Tas nu no tā, bet kad viņš man sāks teikt, nu par to...
Ska vi prata svenska, Mika?
Viņš jau tā runā.
Ne, par to programmu, kur mēs sākam tagad to projektu. Un ko viņš man saka, viņš noskaidroja. Kāpēc viņi nevarētu paņemt? Es to programmu neesmu izdomājis. Viņš jau nav kur.
This is European language.
Yeah.
Okay, Inta.
Kāpēc viņi nevarētu to programmu neesmu izdomājis?